Hey folks, figured I'd show y'all what I have going on here. So first thing is, for those who are liking the Gozanti, I have a upgraded version here. This is the Gozanti Mod C. This difference between this and the original one is this is going to be spawning in at a core 4. So for people who aren't necessarily interested in going through the upgrade path, but well, at least not all of it, there still is some upgrade potential here. So maybe for those who aren't interested in going through the full upgrade path, it has something here for a Core 4 spawn in partially upgraded. Number of devices installed. I do believe we have the Shield Warp Drive. Yeah, Shield. We have Warp Drive CPU installed. So this will leave us open for Reforged and vanilla players if they want to go ahead and go to the advanced CPU. We still have a lot of upgrade potential here, but enough to have some representation here. So you're not having to go through the process of taking out and placing all the thrusters and all that stuff. Some of them can still be added. Vertical lift, wanted to strafe here. You still have the drive optional, so in addition to that, there was some changes done to the armor profile. So one of the restrictions of the starter vehicles in any capacity, CV, SV, or whatever, is you can't really up armor them. You gotta have a steel base. So here with the Mod C, what we have going on is a changed profile. The front of the ship has been armored. So everything here has been moved to combat steel. Actually, you know what? We don't have a warp drive in here. I take that back. So we have a combat steel encasement around the warp drive, around the bridge area, as well as the generator house and the shield house. This has all been upgraded as well. The shield extender areas, these have been upgraded to hardened steel. So there's a lot more rigidity to it. Could act as a perhaps a mid-range frigate of sorts. I think our spawn-in level now here for Reforged, we're at level 15 now, as opposed to level 10, which is the original one. I think that I'm not sure that would be the same for vanilla. I'll have to check up on that. So you're not going to find this on my workshop. I had this unlisted. I didn't want to spam the workshop with yet another Gozanti. So if you want to, I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can just follow that, check it out. So another thing is that maybe for those who haven't been following, the Retribution has been updated. I did a number of things, a number of overhauls, increased the storage capacity a little bit more. I think it was 160 additional cargo, 160,000 additional cargo was added. Extra boxes were working. I did a number of changes to the sensor systems. So that way all of the lights and stuff are set to your presence in a room. Now this should save on game performance as well as cut down some of your energy usage. So it's going to be a little bit more efficient. A little less taxing on fuel cost due to the lights being toggled off and such. I did want to note that with the original Retribution, there were some issues with reverse thrust. It wasn't robust enough for people who fully upgraded it. So I just want to point out that there is, I guess, kind of a choice here. You don't necessarily have to weaponize this. You could go for some additional reverse thrust if you wanted to do that. You could slot in, so for example, you could go there. Maybe that's not enough, so what you could do is you could cut this out, slot that in, and then maybe you want to connect these two pieces here. Sorry, connect the two engines. So you could, and then, conceivably take that out. Something like that. So now that would give you a more robust profile. You just have to trade out some weaponry if you wanted to do that. But yeah, so that was definitely an issue. Really sluggish reverse thrust. One of the shortcomings of the build, but I did do a modification, an alternate build, and there'll be more on that later. Looking over here at this one. Yeah, so that's Retribution. Some updates to it. A lot more energy efficient. Changes to the... let's see if I can... Well, it's kind of... yeah, here we go. Cargo boxes tucked throughout the build. Mostly to the back of it for some protection. So if there's a situation where you're in combat and maybe you lose a portion of the front, so a lot of the boxes, well, really all of the new boxes that are added, these are more towards the midsection than the back section of it, so those newer ones should be more protected. So moving on to the Quasar. So what we're looking at here, this is inspired by the Star Wars carrier of namesake, and here in Empyrion Galactic Survival, originally I had it as a quote-unquote multi-role carrier. So kind of a moddable carrier, somewhat empty. Wanted to leave the definition up to you guys. Like, you know, is it... I guess really the general purpose, general function of your standard carrier is people just... They'll take them, they'll park them at a sun, they'll use whatever docked vehicles they have to it and disperse out through the solar system and do whatever mission sorties they need to do. And so the original thinking was, you know, maybe I'd have a carrier that could fulfill those roles if the player wanted to do that. With moddable features, you could have it as a standard carrier. Maybe you could use these marked off bits. Maybe you wanted to put a bunch of drills on it and could act as a miner, a heavy miner, super heavy miner. And then, like, you know, maybe you could define the cargo capacity here. This is all something I'm working on to get that fleshed out. These are some additional expandable rooms and stuff like that for cargo systems that you could set up if you wanted to do that. So I was thinking that, and then also in addition to that, sort of like it could fulfill a light cruiser role. Like, so all of these could be weaponized here. And it counts on something of 60 to 70 gun profile. So, but, and it does have armor, has a lot of, well, I wouldn't say a lot of it, has significant armor. The front is combat steel and a mix of Xeno. We do have the compartments back here. These are all protected. These are encased in Xeno or combat steel. So these, for Reforged Eden players, they could slide in the shields, or for Reforged Eden and Vanilla, this could be acted as, or could act as compartments for protected cargo that you could add on. So I was considering that a function, but I don't know. Now I'm sort of beginning to think maybe that's possibly trying to reach for too many things and kind of losing some of its strength as a specialized role. So I'm kind of in a mindset now is maybe I just might step back on the armor, downgrade like the Xeno and combat steel, bring that down to just a steel profile. And just leave open the capacity to add layers of protection through the addition of the shield components, shield devices, and stuff like that. So originally it's looking at all of the shield parts and 3 fusion reactors for Reforged Eden. So it's probably too much for a vehicle that would ultimately, for probably the better part of the player base, just stay parked at a sun. So that might not be necessary. And the initial idea behind it being potentially a combat vehicle is that maybe one of your sortie vehicles, your warship or whatever, gets destroyed. Here you would sort of have like a life raft that you could add, you know, turrets and stuff to, and go rescue the remains, or perhaps the original combat vehicle just got its core shot out and you just need to go back and dig it out and put the core back on, and this would be a vehicle to go and dig that out. But that may not be a thing that's necessary. Maybe I don't need all of that armor. Maybe it could just be just steel, and then the active defense profile of the additional shields could fulfill that. So it's near 12,000 Xeno at the moment. So yeah, it's kind of adding up. So, and the weight's adding up as well. So maybe I'll step that down. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Is that something you'd like to see? Do you think it would be better as just a steel and carbon profile and leave that defense potential just to be used out of the shields, or would you like to see some combat potential if it has to come to that, using Xeno and combat steel and such, that sort of a profile thing? Yeah, so let me know how that is. What you think about that, or is it just better as the steel? And let's go ahead and take a look at the inside here. Show you what we got so far. Little dark, just a little bit. Yeah, so I'm going for that Star Wars emulation, of course. We're getting some good vibes with that. We do have... so I wanted to make utility out of all the space on a hangar. So what we have going on here is these are dockable slots for the TIE Enforcer. So once we have a TIE Enforcer and we have it configured with landing gear to be used on the top of the vehicle, if we've used this bit right here as opposed to this bottom configuration, then it should be ready to dock on the top of these things, and then that way that's going to leave you the floor space to park whatever standard vehicles that you need to park. There we go. All right. Yeah, so that's it. Yeah. So a couple of ports for that, 2 on either side, so for a 4 total. Now this is the maximum size hangar, so we're looking at options for some of my bigger SV builds, say the Stag, for example. That's a bigger ship that can fit in here. Yep. Fits in pretty comfortably. Yeah, so a good size hangar. We have essentially 2 hangars here. We got this transition part in the middle. Yeah. Good accommodation. So between this and the giant lead on the top of it, you should be able to fit a good number of vehicles. Now, again, some definable role options here. I will have some onboard space, some determined cargo space originally, or I'm sorry, initially, right out of the gate. But I think later on, I think the majority of the cargo you're going to be able to add on to it. And as well, you'll be able to dock 3 modules to the build. So think Helios. The Helios modules, I've been using those as a reference since that seems to be one of the more popular scalings. As far as farms, I would, hope to see that the bulk of those used in a module. So what we have here is we have like a 27 grow plot on board. So there's a little bit here, a little bit of supplemental. I didn't want to go too overboard on that and just siphon off too much of the energy. Still haven't worked out where I'm going to put the CPU and such, but Maybe that'll be easier if we determine that this would be better as a steel hull, as opposed to a mixture of combat and Xeno. Yeah, just kind of working it out. So we're going to be looking at, again, three ports for our module system. So got the one here, and this one here. I think this will be for the most trafficked of the modules, whichever one you decide that's going to be. So I'll have an easy parking access here to the front. So whatever you got going on, whichever one you need to tag as often as possible. Maybe that's your farm module or whatever. So that'll be closer to your control station up front right there. A number of other things I'm working on here. Some optional bridges. Maybe this could be a protected bridge for a combat scenario, so you won't be as exposed up front here. Ideally, this is more of like a minor position, so if you do mount the drills and such, this should give you a good profile for viewing, but here maybe this would be a better decision for a combat bridge. So still working that out. We do have solar here. This is going to accommodate all of our 48. So on either side, that'll fill it out. Or it could be more cargo. So for vanilla players, this could be additional cargo if you want to go that route. Yeah, so it's a big build and it's not, if that makes sense. There's just this kind of big gap of volume right here in the front, so it seems like it should take a shorter amount of time due to this being missing here, but there's so much real estate, a lot of shaping to do. These front bits here, I'm thinking I want to break up this. I don't so yeah, if I do commit to like a steel body, then I don't need all of this weaponized. It doesn't necessarily have to be 70 turrets or whatever. I could break that up and do some design and stuff, which I still am doing a lot of that anyways. A lot of this needs to be shaped and, cut-ins and all that sort of thing to give it some definition. Thruster system, still working that out. This is kind of a copy-paste from the Judicator. I'm not sure if I want to finalize on this look here. This is just, these are here just to move the ship. But yeah, it's like 13 drive thruster. So, a lot of thrust potential there. Good bit for the strafe as well. So that's 6, and then we got the 2 here, that would be 8. So, you can see that a lot of investment here. The CPU would go into thrusters if we fulfill all of that. Now, this is just kind of the situation where we wanted to put all this in to be agile with and situations of combat. So, again, maybe it's too much of an investment. Maybe we don't need all of that. So, again, just give me some feedback on that. How do you feel this thing should be? Should it just be just a standard steel body? We'll leave the optional shield placement and stuff like that to give it some combat rigidity if it has to come to that. Yeah, let me know. So moving on, a couple looks at things here. So I'll give a little love back to my people that support me on Patreon. I've gone with a system here, kind of the pirate colors. If you've looked at the Nebulan B, that initial spawn-in coloration, I'm doing a redux on some of the other builds, given that pirate profile with the color and look. Some changes to the aesthetic, as well as some change to function on some of these. So first one we're looking at here, this is the Gozanti M. It's much like the Gozanti C here, but a number of differences here. Like there's pylons mounted on the bottom for additional weapon mounts. The profiles change a little bit as far as the wing aesthetic. This is cut right here to kind of emulate more of an actual Gozanti as opposed to this continuation here. So a number of changes with not only the aesthetic, but the addition of more turret placement. So this midsection here, this is an additional placement. The tail has additional placement right there. So we could go 2 on either side. Better for drone protection. And the outer wing has a mounting there as well. So sort of the same armor profile as the Gozanti M with the update to the nose and areas protecting the generators, the shield parts, all that sort of thing. But we have the pirate color scheme in addition to that applied to it, but it does carry the original colors as well. So it's what, 4 color total. These builds on Patreon exclusive. Now looking at the Malevolence, this is the mod to the Retribution. This is currently on Patreon. Now originally I was thinking about just leaving it as a Patreon exclusive, but I might just do this as Patreon early access because there's enough of an overhaul to the Malevolence versus the Retribution that it's kind of its own build and its own right. So some of the issues that we might have had experienced before with the Retribution, with the poor reverse thrust, this is kind of shored up. So now with this configuration, we have a 4 drive reverse and 1 advance as opposed to the original, which is 2 drive and 2 advanced. So significantly more to back out of this situation. Now, as well as that, we've gone to a 4 drive, 4 thrust configuration versus what was originally 2 drive and 2 advanced. So with some of the heavier configurations, with all of the weapons mounted and stuff like that, we should be seeing a lot more response to maneuverability and stuff. So in addition to that, we also do have an additional advanced strafe added. So also these side flares here, these have been reconfigured to house solar. So these are our solar positions, where before this was just an aesthetic look. So maybe you could fit some of the smaller solar mountings on there. But so I guess one of the issues here as well with the original Retribution was trying to get all 48 of the solar panels. So this left players with the bottom here in a situation where they might have to sacrifice some of these turret mountings here in order to get those solar panels placed. But now it should be a lot easier being able to house 8, 4 on either side. So that'll take away from the need to cut up some of this area in order to use that for solar placement. A number of other things that have been done. There's 2 additional turret mounts on either edge of the wing. Those have been added. And the bottom has seen a more robust addition to turret placements as well. So I think it's something on the order of 6 or 8 additional turret placements for the bottom. So if you're on a planet, you're hovering over POI, those should delete at a faster rate. Another note about the Retribution feature that was requested is there's an easy access drone hatch on the front here. So in and out, just right there at the control station. Some people say that it's maybe a little tricky to get out with this archway here. So if you got to, you could always just remove that. But I didn't want to completely leave it unprotected. Just give it some sort of facing there for some protection. It just seemed like too much of a weak spot. But yeah, number of options there. Yeah, so that's the Malevolence. It's currently on Patreon if you want access to it. In some future setting up, definitely will release it to the workshop. Not sure on what date that is. Kind of looking at what's going on with Reforged Galaxy 2. If that comes around, I wouldn't want to try and convert both of these. I would rather just see which one would be the better option for that mod, to see which one would be the better profile as far as like CPU consumption, all that stuff, thrust values, how that would translate to the new mod. So I would wait on that. So maybe that could be the correlation release date to the workshop with this is whenever Reforged Galaxy 2 comes along, or if you want to try it out, give it a look, give it a playthrough. There's access to it on Patreon now if you want. So another thing with the Patreon access is I've done a mod to the A-Wing, so kind of roughed it up a little bit. Give it more of a pirate rugged profile here. Change out of the cockpit, so this has opened up a little bit more space in the front here. There's additional armor. The aesthetic on the outside has been changed with these kind of outrunners there. There's armor plates. This too has an upgraded profile where before the A-Wing originally just has comes in as a starter at core 1, and here we have a core 4 setting. Sorry, a core 5 setting. So 4 advanced and your standard there. So it comes in with shield placement, generators, all that sort of thing. We're looking at, this is our thrust value, 4 laser cannon, pair of missile launchers, and 1420 shield value. So you still have space, though, to upgrade. So a 23 of 34,000. So there's additional space if you want to upgrade the shield or add some other components or stuff like that. There's a little bit left. Yeah, so the A-Wing Corsair, and we have the Gozanti M, and the Malevolence, all filling out our pirate suite. So last thing we're looking at here is an Imperial Outpost. This is on early access to Patreon as well. This is something I'm kind of deciding if I want to release this to the workshop or not, but if it would even have a role. So I guess kind of the philosophy here is this is an HV, so I'm kind of thinking like, okay, would there be a role for an HV base that could be something between like your starter vehicle and when you initially put down your CV, or perhaps even your first base? So I'm trying to, does that fulfill a role? Is that a niche that somebody would want to look at? So spawning in, we'd have a pair of constructors, a clone chamber, armor lockers, 2 fridges, good, well, I'd say a decent amount of storage. We could be looking at a pair of 10.5K miscellaneous boxes and 4.25K ammo. So, and I actually do have 2 versions, one with these storage boxes omitted. So potentially some sort of, I don't know, I'm just trying to I guess kind of feel out what role could it have. Could it be like an outpost, something you put on a planet as like a micro base? You don't have to worry about NPC base attacks. You don't have to commit to building a giant base, leaving a big footprint, that sort of thing. Maybe you have a prolonged siege into a POI, and you just want some sort of dump or respawn. If I don't know, maybe your CV or SV that you flew in got shot up, and you need a respawn point or something like that, and also some storage. Well, maybe that could fulfill that, or maybe this is the build that you put down. You're not going to build a base. You're just going to go straight to a CV. So maybe this could just be like a resource dump, something just to get you started before you move into your CV, because you don't want to put down a base. You don't need to do all that. You're just going to drop this down and then collect your resources, build your CV, and then you're out. And so you don't have to worry about investing so much into a base. I don't know. Again, here, let me know what you guys think. Is that something you'd like to see? Is there a use for it? Is it just redundant, or what are your thoughts on something like that? So, but me personally, I think it's a cool build. I could see using it in some situations. Again, I do have 2 versions, one without these. Just having this central area here with 1 constructor, it kind of works as a nice little outpost for reforging it and vanilla. But yeah, that's a look at everything. A couple other things going on. It's I do want to note that once I've completed the Quasar here, I'm going to be shelving Star Wars builds for a while. I'm going to start working back on my original faction, Phoenix Star Wars stuff, do some of my own designs and stuff like that. It's, Star Wars stuff is fun. Yeah, I like the aesthetic to it, but sometimes I need to rotate out of that and do things out of my own mind, out of my own imagination, that sort of thing. Yeah, that's it. That's a look. I'll have more in the future. I'll give some additional updates on the Quasar. Probably going to be a good little while before this is done. I'd like to get it done before the end of the month, so it's realistic. There shouldn't be too much to do. I've got all the major rooms and devices laid out. The hangars set up. I just need to break up some of these walls and stuff. They're kind of blank. Do a little bit better on the cut-ins here for the ceiling. That sort of thing, just touch-ups and stuff like that. So, yeah, ideally have this thing out before the end of the month, hopefully. I'm ready to get out of it. I'm ready to start working on my own original designs. I've got sketches of things that I want to do and things that I've already built I'd like to see finished. Now, I might do a couple things here and there, some smaller builds for Star Wars, maybe an HV or, maybe another small SV or something of that nature. But for the most part, I think I'm ready to move on from the big projects for Star Wars and start working on some Phoenix Star Wars stuff. So, yeah, that's it. Until next time, I'll catch you folks later. LyfeForce out. Hello, folks. If you enjoy my content, if you enjoy my builds, please consider becoming a patron today. As a patron, you get access to custom builds of release works, early access to some builds before they hit the workshop, exclusive builds. You also gain access to direct feedback and engagement through polls, idea suggestions regarding builds before and after workshop release. If this interests you, please check out the pinned comment below. Thank you.